us over the years that it wasn't even hard to black. It was just like 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's a good threat there. I won't tell anyone, Ryan. You give me.
Thanks.
All right. This story is called The Venusian Mantis. Halfway through dinner, he excused himself from the table to go to the restroom. She smiled politely as he stood up and pushed in his chair, but secretly grimaced at the thought of his disgusting secretions. Nevertheless, she had been counting on a momentary lapse of his company. She reached across the table and picked up his wine glass, though she had taken no more than a few obligatory sips of her own. She allowed a mouthful of his wine to slide past her lips and swished it around her teeth and gums, nearly retching at the unpalatable acidity. She spit the wine back into his glass and set it on his side of the table. Picking at her unappetizing plate of clam linguine, she waited, eager to move the night along. When he returned, he took a long drink, looked up, and smiled at her. Almost immediately, he began to yawn and blink his heavy eyelids. Soon he had grown quiet, taking occasional bites of his shrimp scampi, nodding his head and swaying slightly. She was happy to dispense with the ruse of conversation. He said his name was Peter Eunice. What an embarrassingly phony alias. He was so dopey when it came time to pay, he merely wobbled obliviously in his chair as she picked up his wallet, removed the driver's license, and memorized his address. When the waiter returned the credit card, she asked for a cab, and was soon leading his passive but heavy frame out the front door. Inside the cab, his dazed, roiling eyes began to focus. He looked dizzily at her as an expression of sleepy panic sharpened his features. He tried to speak, but could only breathe heavily. She took his hand as he reached for the door handle. She could see the driver, alarmed by the commotion, glance back at them in the rearview mirror. "Shh," she said softly. "We're almost home." He had gained enough awareness to resist her as she led him from the cab to his front door, reached in his pocket for his keys, and guided him inside, but he was still too intoxicated to pose any real threat. To a passerby, he would appear to be nothing more than a belligerent drunk, obstinately fighting his no doubt long-suffering girlfriend. She dragged him straight into the bedroom and shoved him forcefully onto the bed. He was becoming more active now, so she stuck her finger in her mouth and put it in his, which calmed him down, though she could tell by the fear in his eyes he was fully conscious. She pulled her dress over her head. As he gazed at her naked form, any residual hope he retained about her nature and his own inevitable fate vanished. She undid the tie around his neck and unbuttoned his shirt. She yanked off his shoes and tugged off his pants and shorts. He was moaning slightly now, so she flipped him over on his stomach to muffle the sound. Feeling around at the back of his head, she found the zipper hidden in his hairline and yanked roughly down on it until it began to come open. Folds of pink, slick flesh unfurled from within the tanned, muscular hide he had been wearing. She found a stinger, and with her raptorial limbs snipped off the tip. She threw the lance into the floor where its poison seeped harmlessly into the carpet. She could hear him mumbling something, his mouth buried in his pillow. "What? What are you saying?" she asked, rolling him over so that she was face to face with him. "Please don't hurt me," he muttered. Yeah, sure, but we'd be in an entirely different position if I was a real girl, wouldn't we?" she responded. She certainly didn't need the justification to proceed, but their plaintive hypocrisy always irritated her. "Of course, if you were a real boy, I wouldn't be interested in you at all." He blathered something in response, but she ignored him. He might have said that he respected her, that she was a predator just the same as he was, as though she had some sort of ethical motive for consuming him. She was eager to be done with this particularly noisome morsel. Her body wavered as her skin became more elastic, turned from dark brown to royal blue. The maw on her belly opened wide and began to suck and chew at the tender, spongy meat beneath it. The human pleading gave way to a shrill shriek. Hopefully, any eavesdropping neighbors would simply mistake the cry for an unhappy radiator. Her body made a gelatinous blanket, enveloping him as she guzzled up and ingested his remaining flesh with a wet slurp. She lay on her back, allowing the residual waves of euphoria to wash over her. Already she could feel him coming apart inside of her, dissolving, nourishing the dozen or so eggs she had in her womb. The ravenous pleasure cried out to her like tiny squeals of gratitude. Satiated, she remained prostrate on his bed for the next few days, slipping in and out of dreamy awareness, limbs wriggling, her engorged torso green and swollen like the body of a stuffed tick. Thank you.